Hi, I'm Will. This is Marcus, our bartender extraordinaire at Fallow. Today we're going to learn all about English wine with our good friend Warwick at Renegade Urban Winery.
Let's have fun.
We. Here on another Fallow field trip to Renegade Urban Winery. This is Warwick, our good friend. And we're going to learn all about English wine today.
Yeah, well, British wine.
British wine.
Pressed in London, destemmed in London, fermented in London, bottled, labelled, packaged, everything. Grape to glass London, but we just don't do the growing, we buy grapes. So in July last year, we moved from all the production from Bethnal Green into Walthamstow E17. And so we went from 1,000 square foot to 7,000 square foot, and we doubled production. So we went from about 30,000 bottles to 67,000 bottles. Wine's a scale game, and we needed better equipment, we needed floor drains, we needed better space for people to work in. Because we did it all in a railway arch, and there was no floor drains. We were down an alleyway filled with used furniture. We had to bring everything into a space that was more compatible with urban winemaking.
Typically now, like, where are most of the grapes coming from that you're doing?
So we want to predominantly use English grapes.
Yeah.
But the difficulty with England is it's a marginal grape growing climate, and we don't focus on English sparkling. If you made only English sparkling, almost every year the grapes are ripe enough. Yeah. If you want to make whites and rosés and even reds, you need really good years. And 2021, terrible. 2017, terrible. And so because we're buyers of grapes, we decide, based upon how the season's looking, where we get grapes from. So last year we aimed to get 70% from England, and in the end we bought 35%. We try and at least get 50% from England, mainly Essex and Herefordshire. And then we buy from Bordeaux, Lombardy, Puglia, the Pfalz in Germany, northern Spain, southern Portugal, anywhere where they grow great grapes.
So what's stopping those guys producing wine on their own vineyards?
Well, a lot of people don't realise that in the world of wine, not everyone who grows grapes makes wine. Grape growing is agricultural in its kind of base, you know. It's essentially farming. Yeah. And because you're a good farmer doesn't mean you're a good winemaker. And because you're a good farmer doesn't mean you want to make wine. So a lot of vineyards around the world buy grapes. So people sell us grapes for loads of reasons. The first reason is they're growers only, so they want to sell them. We pay for the grapes as soon as we take them. So cash flow wise, rather than having to make your own wine and then age it and release it, you get the cash up front. The third thing is we do innovative things with their grapes that they would never do in their home market. Like we do pet nats made from northern Italian grapes. We hop a sparkling wine. They wouldn't do that in Champagne. We do country blends, so we mix Pinot Noir from 3 countries and ferment it together to create a new style of Pinot. So we do things that people just don't do.
Sort of rewriting some of the rules.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many rules in Europe, especially, around what you can do with grapes. Yeah. What yeast strains you can use, what wood you can use to age it, and how it should taste like. Whereas here, we do what we want, because we're not bothered. Even if we buy grapes from Meursault, we're not going to put Meursault on the bottle. Yeah. So again, we might use a New World yeast strain, or we might use a wild yeast, or we might age it in American oak. You know, again, things that they wouldn't do in that region, but just to try and push the boundaries of urban winemaking forward. In exactly the same way that craft breweries have done this. Like craft breweries don't grow their own hops, don't grow their own malts, and they make new styles of beer in London. New England IPAs in Hackney was not a thing 10 years ago. English skin contact pet nats was not a thing in Walthamstow 1 year ago.
So you're right at the forefront, basically, of an urban wine revolution, you could say.
Yeah, we are, but because we are some of the trailblazing renegades, it's fraught with problems, mistrust, assumptions that are wrong, and mistakes because it's experimental. Yeah. So it's an exciting roller coaster, but there are some big lows. Yeah, the way it works is that we send our picking baskets out to the vineyards. They pick into them. They're about 17 kilos. They put them straight into a refrigerated truck, and it gets driven to us overnight. And since Brexit, paperwork has gone through the roof. Transport costs have gone through the roof with a shortage of drivers and diesel prices. It is a nightmare, but it's worth it for some great European fruit. But it's also a reason why we want to use more and more English fruit. Mainly because England's planting loads, the fruit quality is getting loads better, and it's on our home soil. Like our nearest vineyard is in the Crouch Valley in Essex. It's 27 miles away.
Well, if you think about us, for us as a restaurant, like there's so many restaurants that are using like New World wines that come halfway across the world. For us, the main benefit of using you guys is, you know, you're literally cooking down the road.
Yeah.
So it cuts down transport.
Yeah.
You know, we're supporting local businesses, and it's an amazing product.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the, again, in wine, it's not the world's most sustainable business generally, and the biggest contributor to that is the transportation of wine in bottle or bottles. You know, and so again, we're moving more to doing wine on tap that cuts it out completely. Again, we bottle everything here and ship it locally.
Yeah.
We bring in the fresh grapes, we squeeze them, we press them, and we send the skins to farmers. That's it, you know. Yeah, so today we're bottling a wine called Shivam, and it's a Pinot Noir grown in the Pfalz in southwest Germany, and a Cabernet Sauvignon grown in high altitude Penedès in Spain. And so yeah, bottles, sterilization, gassing to reduce oxygen contact, filling, corking, labeling, swing tagging, boxing, palletization. Yeah.
So how much wine are you going to bottle today?
Today it's about 2,000 bottles. 2,000 bottles. And so yeah, it's a day's work.
This is a bit of a signature of your brand.
Yeah, yeah. So all of the bottles have the face of one of our customers. And it can never be a restaurant we deal with, it can never be a friend of ours, it can never be an employee, it has to be a real random. And once a year in November, we ask people to put themselves forward and see if they want to be a face. If we make the same wine from the same grapes the same way the next year, it's always the same person, but we take their photo every year. So you'll see Shivam get older with every vintage we release of this wine. Come back in 10 years, and Shivam won't be 24 anymore. So wines can be in tank, just for a fermentation perspective, for between 10 days and 20 days. But wines can be in tank anywhere between 3 months and a year. It depends on the wine style you want to make. If you want to make it more textured, if you want to transfer it to oak, if you want to leave it clean, if you want to filter it, it all depends.
When you do wine, actually yeast is quite important part of the fermentation.
Yeast is one of those things that no one talks about in wine.
Yeah.
Temperature, yeast strain, filtration, fining, oak contact, like they don't talk about much of the making. So in terms of yeast, we try and be wild ferment, but sometimes you can't. And what we try and do is we try and use innovative new yeast strains with old world grapes. Again, challenge the status quo. Don't just use French yeast strains with French grapes.
How are you making wine unique, actually?
Exactly, exactly. One of the challenges we've got as a business is getting people to try it and to have a bit of confidence that things can be made really well in London.
Yeah.
This would normally be buried underground. Okay. In Georgia, they call this a quevry, but it's normally buried underground. But because our first winery was in a railway arch owned by Network Rail, we couldn't dig deep. So yeah, but essentially this is concrete, and it gives you micro-oxidation and softening properties like an oak barrel,
yeah.
But it doesn't give you the oakiness.
And this is like one of the oldest ways.
Oh yeah,
originally.
people will say that Georgia is the real home of winemaking, and a lot of producers use it in these concrete tanks. Often they're lined with beeswax, yeah. But we didn't line this. It's not vegan, beeswax is not vegan, and also it requires quite a lot of maintenance. Yeah. So people don't often realize that animal products are used quite heavily in winemaking. Milk protein, egg protein, and fish swim bladders are the three most common. And they usually use them to clarify wines or to soften tannins.
Yeah.
But there is no need if you can either give wine more time or take a different approach. Yeah. Remember like 5 years ago, everyone drank Foster's, Kronenbourg, whatever, and they were all shiny pints. Now it's hazy pale. Why? Because the more you leave in a wine or a beer, the better it tastes.
Yeah.
The mouthfeel, the aromatics, the taste profile. It's the same with wine. The more you can leave in there, the better it will often be if you want those characteristics. We're using a mixture of old French oak barrels, new American and new Hungarian oak.
It's repurposed?
Repurposed, yeah. And the reason we do it is not because they're cheaper, it's because you only get the real oakiness from a barrel the first time you use it. Yeah. After you've emptied it, you've taken out a lot of those flavor compounds that give you the oaky taste, and you get the benefits of micro-oxidation and aging, but you don't get the oakiness. 40 barrels here are filled with red wine, and 60 plus are filled with white. And then, yeah, wine in key kegs. Almost all wines you have on tap that are sparkling are force carbonated through the line, whereas this is just natural CO2 created during fermentation, pulled out through the line. So here we have this shop.
This is our favourite. It's from Hereford, right? The grapes, but
yeah.
It's really strong in elderflower, like really floral.
Yeah, so most of the sparkling wines that people drink, like Cava, Champagne and Prosecco, they go through two fermentations. Yeah. Grape juice, still wine, fizzy wine. And Champagne and Cava goes from still wine to fizzy wine in the bottle fermentation, traditional method. Prosecco goes through what's called a Charmat method. So you do the secondary fermentation in stainless steel tanks, pressurized tanks. But this is essentially grape juice, wild fermented, so it starts fermenting on its own, using its own yeast. And then before it's finished the first fermentation, you shove it in a bottle and put a cap on it. Well, the funny thing is, people don't realize every single bottle of sparkling wine that's made the traditional way is made with this. They only put the cork and the cage on and the foil on when it's going out to punters.
Yeah.
So this just saves the whole faff.
And essentially, like with that wine, does the cork really make a huge amount of difference? Or?
It allows the wine to bottle age a bit. So if you are going to put a vintage champagne down for 10 years on cork, it will change the wine through a small amount of oxygen coming in. But all of these styles of wine are drunk within 6 to 1 year of production. So there's just no point. There's no point. So yeah, 2021, it's got a kind of like Haribo-esque, kind of like strawberries and cream sweets to it. Yeah, some people think it has a little spritz to it. That will go over time. It was a mistake wine because we planned to make a red with the Pinot Noir and leave all the Cab Sauv for the red, but we ended up pulling off some of the juice of the Cab Sauv to concentrate the flavors, and the Pinot Noir was a little bit underripe, so we couldn't use it for a red. So we probably won't make Shivam again. I mean, don't tell him, but.
Do you prefer to do like some fruit wine, something we get in the UK, like El Flora wine or?
Yeah, so we are mucking around. At the moment, everything is made with fresh grapes, but we are mucking around with like combining a base wine, like say like a Riesling from the Pfalz or a Sauvignon, and then doing secondary fermentation in bottle using British fruit. Okay. So last year we tried raspberry, strawberry, beetroot, gooseberry, and 2 different strains of blackcurrant. And we haven't had the headspace or time to really develop that philosophy, but we're trying to keep it only grapes. Yeah, but it's a shame not to muck around a bit with English fruit. Yeah. And again, why not, mate? Yeah. You know? Yes. But yeah, it's a work in progress. We're into year 7 now of the business, and I think we'll be where we want to be probably at year 17, you know?
Really?
Yeah, it's just, everything takes longer than you think in wine.
Yeah.
Everything takes longer. Everything takes longer and costs more, it's more of a pain in the arse.
There we go, that's a positive message to end on. Yeah. Thanks very much, Warwick.